And you're welcome back to the polls. President Akufo Addo has pledged support to two private members' bills initiated by Medina MP Francis Xavier Sosu to substitute life imprisonment for death penalty under the Criminal Offence Act 1960 Act 29 and the Armed Forces Act 1962. And this was during a courtesy call on him by Amnesty International Ghana. The visit was to bring the president up to speed with the progress made so far towards the moves to outlaw death penalty. Over the years, the right to life has been a fundamental human right. However, capital punishment remains a legal penalty in Ghana. Joining me in studio now is the Medina MP himself for a conversation on why he's sponsoring the bill, and he has a big surprise for us in studio. I'll tell you about this 6 books you see here and the stories behind them. But it's a good time to be speaking to you, Francis Xavier Sosu. Welcome to the polls.
Yeah, thank you so much, and it's such a wonderful time to be here.
And many say you've gone into hiding. We've not seen you.
Yeah, I think it's been a while. I think I've just been very busy
right.
trying to fulfill the mandate that people have given to me to serve the people of Medina and, of course, then the people of Ghana. So, yeah, I've been quite busy. I'm sure you've been seeing me all over the place.
Mostly on Facebook, I need to say, with just your constituents. That's how biased you are. You're spending all of the time with them. But anyway, this must be a great news, knowing that the president is supporting your call for us to take off death penalty from our books. How does it come to you that the number one gentleman of the land is supporting you on that cause?
It's such an awesome news. And I would want to use a platform to actually say a very big thank you to His Excellency, the President of the Republic, for throwing his support towards the abolition of death penalty. And of course, he has also played his role in the space of human rights practice. And I recall long ago when he was a member of the Constitutional Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, at the time that the Speaker of Parliament was the chairman of the committee, and he was playing a role as a ranking member. Both of them were championing the abolition of death penalty. And it's also part of the reasons why for more than 30 years, Ghana has never been able to execute anyone, except that when people are on death row, they are kept in condemned cells. Right. So they don't get a chance to live as lifers. And so if we can't kill them, then it's better you remove or you substitute death penalty with life imprisonment, in which case they are treated humanly when they are even in prison. So it's such a good news that the president is throwing his support.
Well, you are a human rights lawyer, so it goes without saying that you support it. But the apprehension for skeptics is that once we do that, we are opening the floodgates for more crime.
Honestly, it's a legitimate apprehension. But I think Ghanaians would have to be more reflective about that, because the processes of lawmaking have changed. Right now, we are at a level where we say that we have a research-based approach to legislation. Mm-hmm. That apprehension has no, it has no basis. There's no data from anywhere that suggests that keeping the death penalty or the retaining death penalty actually serves as a deterrence to anybody. In fact, one of the foremost countries that abolished death penalty is Canada. And they did that way back in the 1970s. But you can go check the record. They have the lowest rate of violent crimes. Contrary to that, some states that still retain death penalty are rather the states that they have problems with gun control because, killing goes on. The point is that you cannot condemn killing and yet have a state-sponsored killing. That is inherently inconsistent with itself. So it's either you are pro-life, in which case you believe that no one must be killed. So in the unlikely event that somebody even commits any of those murders or whatever, when found guilty, you are confined to prison forever.
Okay, so life imprisonment in exchange for death penalty.
Yes.
But then you're not just approaching the issue of the death penalty, you're also dealing with the Armed Forces Act. These are 2 bills. Are they sufficient in tackling the human rights lapse that you see when it comes to our law?
Well, these 2 bills are actually the low-hanging fruits when it comes to efforts to abolish death penalty. Because abolishing death penalty completely will require a constitutional review. And indeed, when you look at the Constitutional Review Commission's report, that in 2010, it recommended that the death penalty be replaced with life sentence. And this constitutional review report was, government white paper was issued on it, which accepted the recommendation, except that attempting to abolish death penalty altogether will require a referendum. And we don't have the financial capacity. As we speak now, we have challenges in the economy, and you can't vote money to go and do a constitutional referendum. And that's why we chose the path of less resistance, introducing bills that amend the Criminal Offences Act by removing all the penalties, or removing all the crimes carrying death penalty, including the Armed Forces Act. Even in the Armed Forces Act, it's more dangerous, because the Armed Forces are, persons, who are deemed to have committed treasonable offences are charged by, and then their cases are heard by the court martials. These court martials are not high courts per se. It's not like a typical trial and indictment, and yet it also carries the penalty. And so if we are able to amend these two laws, we achieve about 95% abolition. And the only maybe penalty that may carry, or the only crime that may carry the penalty will be treason and high treason, in which case that is a constitutional offense. The good news is that when you go to Nsawam prison today, the about 171 people on death row were all charged under the Criminal Offences Act. So once you amend the Criminal Offences Act, technically, you really will be doing away with a regime that gives people, or that sentences people to death.
And from what we're learning, there's some sort of a progress. The Gazette stage is where we are now. So I'm just wondering, what's next in this advocacy process?
Actually, it's been gazetted. It was gazetted way back on the 28th of June, 2022. It's been laid. We've done the first laying and the first reading in Parliament, and it'll be referred to the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. Currently, as we speak, I think the leadership of the committee is meeting this week to consider the possibility of having a clause-by-clause consideration of the bill by the end of this month. And hopefully, we should be able to report back to Parliament before the end of the month. Then we'll have an opportunity to do a second reading, or we'll do the consideration of the bill and do a third reading for purposes of passing the bill.
But then you are sure and certain that you have the buy-in of your colleague MPs?
Well, death penalty issues are a bit emotive. And sometimes people who have had personal experiences of having suffered either death as a result of murder or something, sometimes it takes a lot of, it would take a lot to accept, that death penalty, we are doing away with death penalty. But the honest truth is that if you maintain a society of tooth for tooth, eye for eye, you'll get to a point where no one will have an eye, because then we'll keep plucking our eyes until it's gone. And given the fact that there are possibility of judicial uncertainty, and that is where maybe when we later touch on, my book, Guilty of Proven Innocent, there are many times that a person may go to trial and there'll be mistrial, but they would have been convicted for murder. And we've had multiple cases where people have been on death row, sometimes 20 years, 30 years, only for either a DNA or a fresh evidence to acquit and discharge them. So you can imagine someone accused of having murdered someone, convicted for murder, and then sentenced to death and killed, only for another court to posthumously find him not guilty of the offense. How would you have resolved that situation?
So what you're saying is that you're setting that all of these criminals have suffered some sort of systemic injustice. Are you giving them a broad stroke?
Well, not I won't say all of them per se. I mean, there are many people who have had a chance in court and found guilty. But the truth is that there are many of those people on, death row that never had lawyers of their own. And sometimes when you have legal aid lawyers, sometimes the kind of seriousness that is attached to the case is not there. And almost, there's a statistic I read somewhere, more than 90% of almost people, all persons on death row, when they are able to do a successful appeal, are oftentimes either acquitted or discharged, or their sentences commuted to life sentence. So the fact is that not all of us are from very rich homes. Some people, get into a situation of, maybe in a situation where they murder people, and unfortunately for our laws, we don't have a graduated way of even seeing that. And so it's so difficult to classify, even whether it's a first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or third-degree murder. So once it is murder, you are immediately sentenced to death. And so the likelihood that there could be people who genuinely are victims of the legal system is also there. And I've seen it in several other cases, which are some of the inspirations I shared in my book, Guilty Until Proven Innocent.
And in fact, I need to commend you on that. 6 books in just a space of how many years or months?
Well, I think I did 3 of them in 3 months.
Right. And I just want to touch on this, Guilty Until Proven Innocent. I guess that's what's inspiring you to write about this. The fact that you believe, from what I'm seeing here, that there's a lot more for us to do as a nation in dealing with stereotypes.
No, particularly when it comes to our criminal justice system. I mean, and that is personal account. I mean, from what I have done with police, right from the point of arrest to granting of bail at the police stations, to arraignment before the court of competent jurisdiction, to hearing of evidence before the court, and to even conviction. There are many times that this process have been perversed in respect of suspects. And so, in Guilty Until Proven Innocent, what I have done is to chronicle a number of cases that I was personally involved in which persons suspected to have committed offenses were deemed to be guilty even before they proved themselves innocent, which is contrary to the law. Because under our laws, a person suspected to have committed a crime is presumed innocent until proven guilty. However, as soon as there is a complaint, whether there is merit in the complaint or not, the mode in which police comes to arrest people, the denial of bails. Sometimes they arrest you on Friday, knowing very well that Monday is going to be a holiday, keep you there till the holiday is over. And then I shared the story of Abena Nyamiche in this book, where Abena Nyamiche, even by the time they got to court, the court had closed. They managed to still procure, a fictitious warrant to go remand the poor girl. And guess what? When the remand expired, she was forgotten.
But Francis, here's the case. Is it not the case that we have that missing link in legal representation? That's where the bigger problem is.
No, we do. And I think it's recently come very much to the fore. And that is why part of the inspirations that I wrote was a pro bono lawyer without honor. Because, you see, we definitely have deficit, in lawyers. It's part of the reasons why, even as a deputy ranking member, I've been pushing for all the reforms, even in the legal education and the mode in which lawyers are trained and how lawyers are turned out. And also advocating in recent times about formalizing pro bono practices, such that pro bono practices will be used as a benchmark to even renew licenses, for lawyers annually. Even though some people have not been very happy about that call, I believe that is going to be one of the ways that we can safeguard the criminal justice system, particularly for those who don't have money and yet from time to time are accused of having committed crimes.
So where do we move on from here? Because you are saying it's not entirely the issue of legal representation and that there's so much more to do. If we're to start from the point of policy measures, what should we be considering immediately?
Well, I think that, first of all, we need to be able to structure legal, so I'm now talking about the pro bono, legal practice. We should be able to structure it. When you read this book titled Pro Bono Lawyer Without Honor, what I've done with this book is basically to share inspirations about the challenges I had with the General Legal Counsel and how I believe that,
And it comes with your picture as well. You want to show that too.
So, and basically showing what I describe as a deliberate attempt by the General Legal Counsel to end my career.
I remember that case so well. It did affect you, didn't it?
Well, it did to a very limited extent. And I have shared all those inspirations in this book. And the reasons why I've shared these inspirations is I believe that what I suffered in the hands of the General Legal Counsel must not, and mark my words, must not be suffered by any lawyer ever again. Whether you are a lawyer of influence or without influence, whether your parents were ever known as a former lawyers or not, whether you come from a rich home or not, no lawyer must suffer the same fate I suffered in the hands of the General Legal Counsel. And what I did, because it was through pro bono service that all these things happened, I managed to set up what I call the 30 rules of pro bono practice in Ghana. And that is part of the recommendations.
So you feel that there should be a law governing that. At the time you were doing this,
yes.
I mean, we didn't have so many laws.
We had nothing.
And
yet you remember...
But many believe it was touting for you. It was the case that you were leveraging on that. Just to make a good name.
But well, I mean, if serving the poor and the vulnerable will give you good name, then I want that good name. If people are hurting and you are able to assist them and that gives you good name, then I want that name. And you know what? Let me share just a little bit of what I shared.
Okay, this is the street lawyer.
I am
and you've done all these 6 books. We need to be sure that these are your works.
Yes. Don't be afraid. No one is going to sue you. Yes.
I just need to be sure that it's yours. Anyway.
Don't be afraid at all.
Then we're talking about the street lawyer.
The street lawyer.
Right.
So in this book, this is where I describe how I moved from being an ordinary person from the street to the bar. So when you look at the content, like I have like from the street to the bar, in pursuit of the bar, how I pursue the bar. There are young people who are wanting to go to law school, right? And then the call to the bar, how I broke barriers during my pupillage as a lawyer. How I engage myself in community services and legal outreaches. So that's what some of them called touting, because I was basically on almost all radio stations, TV stations. Anywhere there is a violation, you will see me. So you will see all the
And you were doing that. What was motivating that? I guess that's what...
Is it the motivation?
Many people did not understand at the time.
The motivation...
Were you doing that simply because, well, like, let me help them, let me show the world that I'm a good lawyer?
No. You see, we are all products of who we are and our past. And that is why I love these books. Because the first book, which is Love Lifted Me from the Street, the first time I published this book was when I was in law school. You see, when I was in law school, that's when I published this book. And that was in 2008. In this book, I shared my story as living on the street at Malata here, and how the Village of Hope Orphanage of Churches of Christ adopted me from the street.
So you were on the street?
I was on the street. And I was adopted from the street to an orphanage. And how I survived the orphanage life and then eventually went to school, then was in law school. That's why I shared this inspiration in this one. Now, then in this title, which is Homeless, I then share values and inspirations on the role that education played in my life whilst on the street. That by simply keeping an eye on education, I was able to get off the street, because you see, people will show you love. But beyond the love, you should have something you can hold on to.
What then happened? And this is where I see that there's a white man on the front.
Well, that is actually
the cover page.
In fact,
so this is a real picture
that was,
of when you were picked up.
So this was this was actually the COVID outreach. So you see, based on these inspirations, these are the things I do now.
Okay, so I'm mistaking you for being a white man. Anyway, you look like a white man.
But I shared those inspirations. So the point is that whilst living on the street and looking at all these things, I've witnessed all forms of violent crimes. You know, in Newtown here, those the Tezaku. I mean, the things that happen there. I mean, people send us to go buy weed, cocaine. I mean, police will come there with raids. People, unlawful fights. So that gave me some sense of, you know, the desire to fight for justice, stand for justice, and speak for justice. So anytime I find myself in a position where I can do something to help people, I am willing to do that without any reservation. You see, but the point is that when you put yourself out there to serve others, right? I mean, God, who is the source of honor, is the one that honors people. But sometimes when you even no matter how genuinely you do these things, there are people who think that you probably are just doing it because of the name. But really, we do this things not really because you want a name, because it's God who gives names, not men. You know. So essentially, the inspiration to do these things is from my background
and why law for you? Actually, why law?
Law
were you convinced to do it by someone?
In fact, initially I wasn't thinking law. I began to think law when I was in Legon. I recall when I went to stand for the SRC president in Legon, I lost that position, and after losing that position, I had to serve on the committee, which is the communication committee. And in the communication committee, I served as a legal secretary to the committee. I wasn't a lawyer.
Right.
But that immediately gave me some kind of inspiration to want to do a little bit about law. So I would often go to the law faculty to read their entrance exam questions and things like that. And that was where I began to fall in love with law. And I think I've shared part of that inspiration also on I Am the Street Lawyer, because then I shared how I found passion in law and how I became a lawyer and how from being a lawyer, I demystified the whole concept of being law, because those days, it's like we were untouchable people.
Right.
I mean, part of the things we were taught in law school is how you can be, you know, the law, you know, we are the creme de la creme of society.
Like the learned fellows.
We are the learned. So if you were my friend, you will be my friend who is not learned, right? And if you have to address me, you have to be my friend who is learned.
Right.
Because then, by law, you are not learned.
Right.
These are all good things to, grow our egos. But beyond the ego, I think that the essence of the law is service of the people. No matter how great a lawyer you are, if you cannot stand for justice, speak for justice, and fight for justice, then you are good.
And should this also finally, and that will be my final question on these inspirations that you're sharing with us, on the issue about opening up legal education, because it's become almost like an elite club, as some would describe it.
It's quite unfortunate. I mean, and let me quickly add that, whilst coming here, I saw a publication that says that, I think the law school had said that, I think the law school General Legal Counsel had said that, the new, is it the law student? Those who are going to be called to the bar or something, I don't know. Okay. They are demanded that they provide their social media account so they can monitor them.
Yes, as part of,
I'm like, please.
They roll on into the system.
What kind of, I don't want to seem to be very, very harsh, but I think, it's completely mindless. The point is that, to what extent? What law even gives them the power to do that? Which law? You see, the legal profession is regulated by law, and that's what worries me. And I've shared a lot of them in Pro Bono Lawyer with our honor. Right, okay. You see, because you cannot claim to be, we can't claim to be lawyers, knowing very that we are governed by laws, and yet we get up and begin to arbitrarily do things. That is not fair. And for me, it becomes a great indictment on the institution. I think law school should be worried. And the General Legal Counsel must be worried that year in, year out, they are in the news for one wrong thing, wrong decision. Either it's no marking, or you can't call for your script, or either there's some corruption associated with entrance and all that. I think that is just becoming one too many. And they would have to stop that, because it's not fair. And I think that directive clearly is a non-constitutional directive. Right. And they definitely need to back down on those directions. That people should provide their social media handles. So if I'm Francis Xavier Sosu and social media, I'm like maybe Kotia Bodam, then I'll say, okay, GLC, my name is social media is Kotia Bodam. So you can now every day be checking Kotia Bodam to see what, is it my TikTok dances or my posts, my mother that I cook with? What are I monitoring? So please, let's get serious. We want you to take decisions to open up law school. These are not the things that we are asking you to do. So I think that the GLC must come clear. It's not really, it's not cool. But, okay, talking about that GLC, see, so I didn't mention this one. This being the change. Being the change. Right. Now, in being the change, what I've done in being the change is to share inspirations about what we believe must be the change and why we must be the change. And much of what I've shared here, almost all the bills, since last year, I've introduced 9 private members' bills. Right. the death penalty is one, law school, witchcraft accusation, a number of them. Right. All of them have been shared also in this.
So it's a complete package. Yes. 6 books. Let's close the chapter on this before I begin to ask some more questions as a journalist. I think we're having a bit of a good chat talking about your background and what it is that you've done in your legal profession. But now you're a public officer, so I need to hold you to account a bit more.
No problem.
So let's close the chapter on this. I mean, when are you putting this out for people to have access
So
to
we'll be doing launching of the book on Friday, on the 11th of November at exactly 11 at the DF Annan Auditorium in Parliament. Being the change was forwarded by the Right Honourable Speaker, and he will be chairing the official launching. Right. We have renowned people like Chachu Chikata, who also forwarded the guilty until proven innocent.
Oh, amazing.
They will all be there to support the launch. So we invite all of you who are lovers of justice and we have a few packages.
Oh, amazing.
If you want to see the packages, you can just call us.
Sure that they can just reach out.
You can reach out and make an order. And,
all right. Yeah. Okay, it's a good package. We'll talk about this. Of course, you can always reach out to the team, Lawyer Francis Xavier Sosu's team. They're on Facebook, and of course his office. I'm sure when you get to Medina, you definitely locate his office.
You'll definitely find it. But I don't have the constituency office.
Yes. So back to the issues. Very recently, we know that you were in the news of having some challenges with the Ghana Police Service. It's not the first time. Yeah. This time around, the police service says you were found culpable of not respecting the traffic regulations. Well,
I mean, I wish I wouldn't discuss that much. The reason is that I'm actually writing a reflection on that. And actually, the title of that reflection is The Unruly IGP in the village of Kotiabodam. And I describe exactly the kind of needless showmanship than policing. You feel
George Akufo Dampare, PhD holder, Dr. George Akufo Dampare is fixated on lawyer Francis Xavier Sosu. Is that what you're saying?
Obviously. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, I think that, right from the showdown at Medina, where we had a very legitimate demonstration, which had no casualties whatsoever, which they misreported and made, all kinds of news about, to what happened on Thursday. Maybe for purposes of those who are listening. Right. What happened on Thursday? So this is what happened on Thursday. I left Parliament quite late to access. We have finished our constituency elections, and we're going to do swearing-in ceremony in the constituency. Right. And I left Parliament quite late, so I was running late. So I turned on my hazards as well as my security lights and my sirens to ward off traffic so I can join the main road. That's just what happened. So in the middle of that, then I got stopped. So I thought that I was stopped because of the unlawful use of those sirens. You see, but the point is that we don't have any law on unlawful use of siren. We have an airline that prescribes category of people that can use siren. But in Parliament, almost 90% of us have those sirens because they are extra security for us. Sometimes you may be driving in the night, places may be obscured. You turn on those lights. Sometimes you turn on the security lights, so you can ward off. You will recall that some judges, sirens, warded off some armed robbers that once upon a time attacked them, and the news is there.
So it's a security reason.
It's a security reason.
That's why you had it was unlawful.
No. Right? You see the reason why how unlawful. You see the reason is that people don't understand. In our law, an act only becomes unlawful or a crime if it has been prescribed and sentences prescribed for them. The fact is that even as Parliament, we are yet to really determine what exactly to do with that situation.
So how do you connect this to the IGP?
So this is that's exactly what happened. Yeah, right. So when I was stopped and I asked them, why are you stopping? They said the IGP is monitoring that street. And that's why they asked me to stop. That's what they said.
You were stopped because the IGP was there.
The IGP is monitoring that street. That's number one. Then number two, I said, so what should I do? They said, our instruction is that we should impound the vehicle. Guess what I did? I left the vehicle for them together with my keys. Then the police then gave me a vehicle with 2 motorcades, one behind me, one in front, to clear the traffic to the meeting.
This is the part of the story that many of
they will never know. You see, people will never know.
The police gave you escort.
Escort
after your car was impounded.
Then I went to the meeting. When I closed from the meeting, then I called. So can I come for the car? They said, oh no, unless tomorrow. In the morning, I was going to Parliament. I called again. Then they said that they had instruction to take me to court. Knowing what I know in the past, I know that all they are doing, I don't show up, then they'll say that, oh, he is lawless, he didn't come to court, breaking news, new bench warrant for Sosu. So I called my colleague, Honorable James Agaga, who came with me to the court. And my whole idea was that I'm not interested in whatever they want to do. I was going to report this to my leadership, but whatever they say, I'm going to admit what they say, let me pay the fine and leave, because I know that they are up to mischief. So I went there, admitted my offenses, paid the fines, and left to Parliament. So I asked my bodyguard to take a copy of the receipt to the police service so that they can release the car to me. He took the copy of the receipt to them. Then they took pictures of the receipt and shared on social media, number 1. Number 2, whilst I'm in Parliament and parliamentary proceedings are ongoing, my colleagues are coming to me, breaking news, so arrested. Like, arrested? Who arrested me? At what point in time? So when I was arrested, who detained me? Was I bailed? Who bailed me and when? What?
So just briefly, in 30 seconds, what then?
So you see, nothing happened.
Why then do you believe the IGP is part of the problem?
Is it not the head of the Ghana Police Service? Who must take ultimate responsibility of this lawlessness, this needless targeting? Who must take responsibility? Who must take responsibility? Ghana is not a police state. The police is supposed to behave professionally within the limits of the law. But honestly speaking, the IGP is going beyond his limits. And he must understand that policing is governed, it's a profession.
He has a lot of people
it is not showmanship.
Appreciating how he's changed the face of the Ghana Police Service.
When 1,000 people hail a foolish thing, it's still a foolish thing. The fact that 1 million people are clapping for a foolish behavior does not make it a correct behavior.
You would want to use charitable words on the IGP.
Well, I don't know. I'm not speaking. Okay, these are statements, quite general statements. Okay. It's not in relation to IGP. Okay, I'm saying that eventually when my book
comes out,
is released, then people will understand that there are a lot of mischief in this country, but I am not deterred. You see, most of those things, it just rather gives me courage to continue to do what I do, to continue to serve the people, and to do right to Mother Ghana. Okay, let me give you just a minute to wrap up and to speak directly to my audience as we conclude this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you for the audience and want to encourage you to be available in Parliament on Friday and make sure you can get a copy of, a package of the books. In fact, we have gold package, we have all the packages. Okay. I know that this is where the
definitely. Definitely.
So please make sure you
just reach out to him. Definitely. And that's the Medina MP, lawyer Francis Xavier, also joining us here on The Pulse. But